Skills on Tap. I'm Julianne Thon.
And I'm Jennifer Cross.
We'd like to welcome today's guest, Cathy Jones, who is a registered biodynamic craniosacral therapist and a massage therapist. Welcome, Cathy.
Hi, Kathy.
You. Sorry.
So good to have you here. I was just saying before the podcast how excited I was to actually do today's show because I I went on your website and looked up all the things that you do, and you're not just a biodynamic craniosacral therapist or a massage therapist. There's something else that you also are starting to get into. What is that?
Well, I want to get into more coaching with women because this work can be a journey. And as people start deepening in their work, they start
Mm.
recognizing things like conditioned beliefs and, things that aren't really authentic to them. And, so I'm just really in this place of wanting to help women kind of step into their badassery and stop being like a doormat and just really
Well
step.
said.
Yeah, self-love, man. We need it.
No kidding.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Um, Not a lot of people know what craniosacral therapy is, but before we get into that, can you just give us a brief context of how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so I was a massage therapist. God, I want to say I graduated my massage therapy in like 1998 or something. And then I was taking an advanced neuromuscular course. And at some point in there, I worked on my aunt one day. She came to my office, and at this time she was in her 50s ish. And I was doing scalp massage on her. And all of a sudden, at one point, this is so crazy. It really literally felt like something came into my body and squished me over. And then I was in my 20s. I was like, whatever. And
Right.
my my thumbs started going like the bumpers on a pinball machine, and I literally remember looking down and being like, wow, that's so weird. And I'm not doing that. And then I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to see what happens. And literally, like maybe 30 seconds later, my aunt sat up and went, oh my God, oh my God, Cathy, did you feel that? And I was like, what did I do? And she goes, it's gone. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I guess
Wow.
her whole life she had a dent in her forehead that she would like gross her friends out in elementary, like feel my dent. And she heard a pop and she felt something. And when she put her hand there, the dent was gone. And so for me, I was like, no longer interested in neuromuscular. I was like, this is so cool.
There's somewhere else I'm supposed to be, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I literally went through my entire neuromuscular training and then I found a cranial training and it started the day that I had to take the advanced neuromuscular test. And I was like, I don't care. I mean, I got A's and everything. I was like, it doesn't, I have to do this program. And I even tried another cranial program before that, and it just didn't resonate with
Mm-mm.
me at all. But this one really did. And yeah,
And
here
so
I am
here
today.
you are today, right?
Yeah.
So that said, can you talk to us a little bit about what craniosacral therapy is really all about? I mean, I have an idea because of the story that you just told, but it's not only about popping out dents.
Yeah. I mean, I would say a really good focus for craniosacral, and especially in these crazy times, is nervous system regulation. Um, so basically, and I took this from the biodynamic website, the BSTNA. It's a huge mouthful, but it's the Biodynamic Craniosacral Therapy Organization of North America. And they also have a wonderful practitioner list if in your area, if you need to find someone, maybe you can find someone on their site. But what they say is that it is a gentle, non-invasive, hands-on session for the whole body, performed on a massage table. The client's fully clothed and the practitioner's touch is light and still. The session focus is to support the inherent health of the whole being, especially the nervous system, which dictates all of the body's functioning. constantly sending and receiving information. So basically, we are holding the body and we're trained to feel subtle rhythms in the body and patterns. And you're either going to feel openness and symmetry and fluid, or you're going to feel like I'm doing the best I can, you know. And where, you know, the idea is to create the right the right environment or set of circumstances to allow a person to feel safe enough that they can drop in and their body begins to regulate itself. So that's what I really like about
There you
this.
go. We talk with all of our healers that we have on as guests. We always end up talking about the importance of self-healing. And that's what Jennifer and I do too. We promote self-healing. We give the client a space to help their soul and whatever else is necessary to go where it needs to go in order to heal. So they're really doing the work. We're just the guides. That's wonderful. And I noticed on your website, and I think you repeat this in other areas as well, you have a saying that says your body isn't broken, it's brilliant. And I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have to keep that in mind, right?
Well, to me, it's a paradigm shift. Like, I mean, in our culture, you know, there's all these messages about how broken we are and how you know, you need this and you need that. And, you know, and to me, I'm like, God, we've been duped. Like, we have this inner blueprint and connection to the divine. And we're out here buying pills and band-aids and all these other things,
I
you
know
know.
why.
So
Why?
it's a paradigm shift. And honestly, I look at it as even if your body is doing this instead of this, right? That is brilliant that a person can have a lifetime of traumas, accidents, injuries, and still be able to move through life. You know, some of the body's bandwidth may be taken up, but that's health. That's brilliant. And so that's what I mean. I'm like, you're not broken. Your body's trying to communicate something to you. Like, it's wise.
So
Absolutely.
the craniosacral system is the system of membranes that is around your cerebro. It is your cerebrospinal fluid, right, that protects your brain and your spinal cord, correct?
Yeah, I mean, technically, we're working with the meninges around the brain and spinal cord, but realistically, and this is another reason why I like cranial. I always say to people, you can get like massage, chiropractic, and acupuncture without taking your clothes off, getting your bones crunched, and having needles. And no offense, because all those other modalities are amazing in their own right,
Right.
but it's working with the field around the body. I mean, a huge part of why I like this work is the relational field, and we'll probably talk more about that later. But it's like I don't even put my hands on someone until I get a sense of what their energy field is like, and then until I feel them settle. And then once that happens, I might put my hands on, but I'm feeling bone, fluid, fascia, muscle, energy, like whatever's in the field, that's what we're working with.
Yes. And does this have a rhythm also?
I think, well, yeah, there's multiple rhythms in the body. And what we're looking for particularly, there's kind of three tides in the cranial system. And there's like a short tide, or in Upledger, they call it like CRI, mid tide, which is more of a fluid tide, and then the long tide, which is where I think where our bodies are trying to go in the parasympathetic, where we're trying to rest and digest and relax. And that place can just feel like slow and expansive and potent, and just like you want to be there all day.
This brings up a question that I have. Have you had circumstances with your clients where you are pretty much able to locate the difficulties in their within their body, and you work and work and work and it just doesn't happen the first time, and they might have to come back two and three times because what I was wondering about is we come across in introspective hypnosis attachments and sometimes spirits that attach themselves to either metaphorically or physically. They actually attach themselves. How would you handle something like that?
Well, so I wouldn't necessarily say that I perceive like anything attaching to somebody. Um, but, and I might have to have you ask me the first part of the question again. Um,
Well, it's like sometimes attachments come and they kind of hook on to somebody and they cause pain. They
yeah.
cause a lot of pain. And it can be either an attachment of a way that they were thinking or a mandate that they produced, the client produced themselves, maybe many past lives ago, or it can actually be a separate entity
Yeah.
that
So
is afraid to go to the light or doesn't know they're dead. And they sort of want to live vicariously.
yeah, I pardon me. I would think more of in terms of how I work with attachment is like people are attached to conditioned beliefs,
Or
um,
addictions, maybe.
actions, old patterns, and certainly there is ancestral things.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yes.
fully believe people are bringing in
Hmm.
other things from past lives or, so yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of that. And I don't know, I dabbled in like access consciousness for a very short period of time, long enough to learn this one little statement that I'll sometimes, like a clearing statement that I'll sometimes use just because, sometimes I think when people hear that, it kind of helps set it in their body that like, yeah, I can separate from this.
Good. So you do, in sort of a roundabout way, you do deal with the possibility of attachments. It just doesn't matter whether or not you identify them as it or them as an attachment. It's about the healing of whatever that attachment is causing, right?
Yeah, we're just always trying to find a way back to wholeness. And I mean, and
Yeah.
this is what I like about this work is like, yes, it's phenomenal for all kinds of physical ailments. And I know there's a question in your questions, um, but like it's about a spiritual journey almost. You know what I mean? Like this work, sometimes I've said to people before where I'm like, BCST could be like a religion, because so many of the principles that we use in this work, if I could remember outside of my office, my life would just be so much easier.
Mhm. I know.
Yeah, it's connecting the mind, body, and spirit, and bringing it into this wholeness. And so, how can it not be? It
Right.
really is a form of that for sure.
Is this evolutionary sort of journey of self-discovery? And as people are discovering, their body doesn't have to hold on to patterns too, because it's like they get it. And, that's another thing that I like about this work is so there are models that are more like biomechanical. We're more biodynamic. I would say all of craniosacral as a field treats the body as if it's a whole.
Yes.
But to me, there's a difference between, and I don't want to judge like however you get there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we understand that.
But to me, it feels like the difference between someone else, like this bone needs to be moving is very different than the body saying, I feel safe enough. I feel seen. I'm getting some information other than it just involves the client. It's more relational. It's like we're working in tandem, we're working together. I'm not working on you to fix a problem. I'm working with you to create the space and the safety for us to really drop in and for super deep things to come up. And like, I have this happen all the time where people will tell me a story or like a trauma piece, like a major trauma piece will come up or tears. and they'll be like, oh my God, I had no idea that this could happen or that could come
Mm.
up or that we were going to go there or that I was even still holding on to that or whatever the story is. But it's such an amazing way to organically access something. And if the body's ready to let it go, my guess is it's going to stay let go longer than if someone's like, this has to be here. It's
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
if you
aggressive.
haven't learned the spiritual lesson, you're going to keep getting that same situation till you get the lesson.
It must work so well with autism spectrum disorders.
I actually spent about 5 years working at a place called Unique Prince Pediatric Therapy with an amazing woman named Christy Phelps. And yeah, this work is so amazing for kiddos with sensory stuff, with ADHD.
Yeah.
And honestly, Christy and I used to kind of joke, like, not joke, but I was like, man, if I could just work on the parents and the kids could go do all the
I
other stuff.
know.
And I mean, the kids could come
I
in here.
know.
The problem is that especially as a mom, dude, happy wife, happy life is not just a saying. Like a mom is a metronome for her family. And if she's overwhelmed and chaotic, guess what? So is everybody else. And
Yeah.
so I'm even, talking about what I want to do in the future and stuff like that. I tend to work with a lot of women. Um, I tend to work with a lot of women who are kind of in states of overwhelm and they're handling everything and they're kind of waiting for the next shoe to drop and they're kind of like um triage, like they're amazing in chaos, but that's not like a way to live your life, like that's
Yeah.
not sustainable.
I
So
I know exactly what you're talking about because I was a absolute advocate of Unique Prints and took Evan there, and that's how I met Christy.
mhm,
Couple of things. Christy used to do Jinshin energy healing on him, and as a result, I saw such amazing changes in his body that she helped me become certified in that kind of therapy, which is like very similar to acupressure.
mhm,
But when my son passed away, it was sudden. And one of the things that I remember going through, which is hard because you're just enveloped in all this grief, right? I remember thinking, wow, what am I going to do now? Because you are used to like being on go. That engine is never stops. You are on go. It's a green light for your entire life when you are working with a child with special needs.
yeah,
And even during downtime, you're thinking about what you need to be doing next for them. So your speaking about that really hits home with me. And I hope other listeners will understand how important it is. And it doesn't just mean that you have to have a child in order to be through this. Women today, women and men today are the expectations is that they, through their job, they're expected to do everything. And there's this massive energy change that's going on with our earth, with
mhm,
Gaia, and with us as a human society. So we're trying to juggle all of this stuff. So if you can go to a Cathy and you have that opportunity to become one with the healing process, and I need to remind everyone, be ready and expect to give yourself permission to be healed. That's really important too. We have a lot of people that come to us and they think they're ready to be healed, but what they really want to do is just go to a past life to find out if they were a princess. And then,
mhm.
of course, we uncover all these things that they're like, oh my God, how did we go there? Well, because your soul took you there. So that's another important aspect, I think, of what we do as healers. Um, do you do breath work? I think isn't there something within your context called the breath of life or something?
I don't facilitate it. I love it. And breath of life in context to craniosacral is kind of like, and this is, it is to me kind of like a connection to the divine because it's literally like life is breathed into us, right? Like all these things happen and I don't, craniosacral really made me think about, well, where do these forces come from? So obviously there is something from without, right, that brings forces together that causes cells to divide and causes the spine to form, and all these things. And there's also all these things that happen pre-brain and conception too, like I don't know, I think we're kind of a miracle, and we are connected to something bigger than us. And this work definitely, I think, is kind of a backdoor. To me, this work reminds me of meditation. I think I'm like, oh, this is why people meditate, right? They're just trying to get here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the other thing I like about this work too is, I mean, on the one hand, we all probably don't get near enough rest. So cranial can be good just to come in and like let your nervous system rest. But, sometimes people also just want to come in and like just have that little bit of feeling good, and which is great, but it's also nice to have the dialogue to help them to drop in even deeper and maybe take more agency within their journey. And one thing I want to say, because I don't want to forget it, I'm backpedaling a little to the like spectrum and the ADHD and moms and stuff like that. So I think more people are kind of becoming aware of how undiagnosed young girls are with ADHD. Boys get
Wow.
diagnosed,
I do.
don't. And what that means is there's also plenty of women in our age group and between and above and below, right? That are all these undiagnosed women who likely have ADHD. So their brain works differently than this society is asking it to. And we have to manage work, and we have to manage raising a family, and we have to manage like fulfilling ourselves in any way at all, right? And if we're doing that with ADHD, does it kind of make sense that there's so many women that are exhausted, they're overwhelmed, they can't sleep, they have poor digestion, they have issues with executive function, which is
Yeah.
major. I mean, and I did write down what executive function is in my notes somewhere because I was like, I want people to know that. Like, I mean, this stuff is
Right.
really important. It's every system in our body, our
Mhm.
digestion, our respiratory, our immune system, our endocrine system, like everything your body does can be supported by craniosacral.
Yeah, it puts everything right back into harmony if you let it.
And
And that's how come, I was going to
okay.
say, that's how come this form of healing is one of the most accepted techniques amongst traditional medicine. They actually are like, oh, you need to maybe go do this first because it opens up people to all sorts of things, including, psychotherapy and so on and so forth. It relaxes the body to release the mind to do psychotherapy, for example, like I was saying. But can you tell us a bit about the other traditional methods that it can
So
promote because of how wonderful it is?
yeah, I could say so much. First of all, physical therapy.
Mhm.
My personal opinion, people should get craniosacral before they even do physical therapy. Because in most cases, you're dealing with some type of trauma or accident, right? So wouldn't you want to dissipate the energy of that?
Absolutely.
Get this system more in a state of like readiness to be able to integrate and do this work. And so I think that it's good with physical therapy. It can be, like you said, with psychotherapy, amazing. Because the thing is that like, in psychotherapy, you can talk and it's very cerebral, but with cranial, you're tapping right into the body, and deep, deep stuff can come up. And the beauty of that is something can come up, and we have the capacity to help them work through states of shock and dissipate that out of their body. And not only that, but then they have this beautiful nugget that they then can take into their psychotherapist and say, oh my
Right.
God, and this piece came up, right? So that's wonderful for that. And then like dentistry, oh my God. So I don't know, have either of you ladies ever had TMJ work?
Well, I mean, when I was in school, we worked on each other, but I've never had TMJ.
It can hurt because think about it. These muscles are so tight, and then someone's getting in your mouth and they're digging and it's vulnerable. And not only that, but if someone's hovering over you, if you have any dental chair or medical trauma, it's like, whoa, recapitulation of that, right?
Right.
And so with cranial, and especially at the wonderful school that I teacher assist at, the School of Inner Health, it's run by Margaret Rosenall. She's one of my dear, dear friends. I love her so much. And at that school, we're teaching side lying intraoral. So that takes away all of the dental chair trauma. We're letting people take their hand and put it in the mouth. That gives them so much agency and control. And then third, I'm not in there digging. I don't abide by the no pain, no gain policy because your system does not want to hear that slogan.
Right. That's good
Uh,
to know.
so, so we can really do a lot with TMJ, um, gosh, sinus issues, ear infections, Bell's palsy, like all kinds of things with the face too, and TMJ. And so, like, if you're a dentist, it might be good to have someone come in and loosen up their jaw before they have to go in and do, for
Yeah.
others. And then after a procedure, you could also come in and get, those tissues softened. It can help reorganize the bones in the palate, which can be hugely helpful for
Yes.
orthodontia. And there's actually a whole school of people that feel like you don't even need orthodontia if you're doing like, I always say it the wrong way, but myofunctional, I don't know, anyway, exercises for the mouth and the face and some cranial and stuff like that too. So anyway, great for dentistry. Um, let me see. I know it's great for chiropractic. I mean, I love chiropractic and honestly, I believe in it so much.
Right.
But I can't tell you how many times I've walked out of the chiropractor's office and been like, oh, my ankle isn't just right. Or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so I think
I do know.
cranial can help, yeah, to like get those things
Right.
finished. It can hold your adjustments longer.
Right. I
Um,
used to actually do kind of in harmony. I would get a massage and then I would go right to my chiropractor. And of
Yeah.
course, he loved it because it was pop, pop, pop all over the place because I was so malleable. But, talking about the importance of healing with the head, your head is really in the sort of the first line of action. It's protecting everything else. But if you think of it in terms of the chakras, when you have beautiful light from source and your body is integrating and taking it in, where does the energy start? It starts up here, right? Through the crown chakra, and it moves accordingly. So I'm also thinking that in your work, fixing any issues here allows for almost a domino effect. It allows for the rest of the body to get where it needs to be. Certain organs, muscles, spine.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I can say so much. So first of all, I think another thing I like about biodynamic is, and not to sound persnickety, is that even the right word? I don't know. We don't use the word fix. And This takes me on a whole nother journey of how much of a journey I've gone through just as a practitioner to like, don't fix, don't be a people pleaser, like all of that stuff. But it's really about somebody comes into your office and you're seeing them as whole. And the body, it's that body isn't broken, it's brilliant. It's going to come in, even if it's like this, it's still functioning. And so we don't want to look at a body like, ooh, you're a mess, right? Because that's really pathologizing and that sucks. And so what I'm trying to do is let people know even this is still, you're walking, you're upright, like you do have health, right? And so I'm feeling myself getting on a tangent a little bit though. So let me come
No,
back to the head because there's 22 bones in the head, 14 in the face, and several of the bones in the face are actually called speed reducers, which is similar to the bumper in your car. So they're meant to take impact, right, and protect the brain. Um, so that is really cool, right? And I mean, a lot of people have had, if you've been born at all, you've had impact to your.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry to tell you, if you've been born vaginally, you have torsion and compression and all of that, right? And you're right about the organs and everything else too, because all of our, like our stomach and all of our viscera and a lot of stuff actually hang because everything is surrounded in like, think of bags of fascia, right? And so, yeah, everything's hanging from here, and so if our diaphragm is really tight, or if we're always protecting our heart, or you know what I mean? We're shortening, or we're sitting all day at work, we're shortening these muscles, and then they could literally be pulling down on our head. And so you can work down at someone's respiratory diaphragm, and it can, I mean, people will literally get off your table and feel taller.
Yeah.
Most often when people get off the table, they're more embodied. They have like a more stable gait. They feel more in their midline. Their face often looks smoother. And really, my favorite thing is that it's like you can see the light coming through their eyes, like you can see their life force again. It's so beautiful.
what
It's
a
why I have a
beautiful,
mirror
beautiful process.
in my office because I always want to show people, now I want you to look at how you look and tell me, how do you think you look different? Because I want to create that awareness.
You just spurred a question for me. I have noticed in the past several years that more and more people are getting tinnitus. And it used to just be, an old person's thing that you just get it, right? No, there's something going on there. Do you deal with people with tinnitus? Because, there's bones in there too.
Mhm. It's funny. I actually did have a client last year who came in probably the entire year and a half, and she had tinnitus. And she was like, man, I always notice with the cranial. So she had been coming in fairly regularly. So I had seen her a number of times. And I've had sessions like with my aunt where you work on someone once and it's like, it's a miracle. But
Yeah.
in most cases, if it's taken 50 years to get here, it's going to take some time to unpack, right?
Yeah.
And so, dang it, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that?
Well, she asked about
Oh yeah, yeah.
tinnitus.
So she had been coming in for a while and had cumulative sessions. And so over time, it actually really helped to minimize or get rid of it. And it might come back sometimes if she's like really stressed out or something like that. But that's the other thing about this work and where it creates agency too, is as you begin to drop in and get awareness for your body, you
Mhm.
start to recognize when you're in overwhelm,
Yeah.
You start to recognize when things are starting to go south a little bit and maybe your body needs support. You start to recognize when you need to slow down and do self-care.
Recognize how good your body can feel.
So my question, and my guess is that a lot of viewers will have the same question. I believe anyone and everyone could benefit from what you do, right? But for people who are not so sure, what would be some indications that what you do would really benefit them?
Poor sleep, poor digestion, irritability, road rage, yelling at your kids. Man, if I could find that executive function piece that I wrote about, that's a big deal because, it's ability to organize thoughts. It's having anxiety, stress, overwhelm. It's ability to manage time. How are your transitions? Are you
See,
late?
I love that because you are speaking and healing specifically to the emotional and the mental and the psychological, not just the physical. But I'm
Yeah,
assuming that somebody who wakes up every morning with horrible neck pain, that too, or shoulder pain, that is connected to this whole thing, and headaches, right? On
yeah.
the physical side of things.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, these physical things are the brilliance in our body saying, yoo-hoo, hey, and the
Mm-hmm.
body's polite. It'll wait until things get really shitty and you don't feel good at all. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh,
I
but
don't know why we do that. I don't. I am
I
just as
think
guilty
we're
as the next person.
conditioned to do that. I
I just
think we're
I wake
conditioned.
up and I have all these issues and I think, oh, it's okay, it'll go away. Or my husband is walking like Quasimodo. And I say to him, honey, what's the matter? Well, it's my back. I said, you've been doing this for weeks. Are you going to call the chiropractor? Yes. And then it doesn't happen. I don't know why we do this.
Well, I mean, how often have you heard like, well, that's just a part of aging, right? Like, or any of that. And I think we have literally been misinformed,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
we do all have to take more agency and we have to make it a priority. I also wrote in here somewhere, you can look at it as an expense, I guess, but you could also look at it as, hey, this is an investment that I'm making in my health journey and getting, to know myself and know my body. And I mean, what I love about this work is it encompasses so much. Like you can learn so much about yourself from this work. Like literally learning about to drop in and feel in your body. How do I feel when I'm in this space? How do I feel when I'm with this person? Do I like it? Do I not? It's starting to nuance sensing into the body and feeling, not thinking, right? Because we can be tricked, but the body doesn't lie. And so that's how we can deepen into our intuition and then our self-esteem, because then we're empowered, right? I don't need, in fact, you can't fool me because you're telling me something, but my body's telling me something different, and I'm going to listen to that, you know?
As well as like spiritual enlightenment too, because there's some major glands in your brain, right? One of them being the pineal. And if you've got buildup of calcium or what have you, moving that stuff around loosens that stuff right up. And next thing you know, you're like awakened and feeling that also, which is what's supposed to happen right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, people
What?
see colors all the time on my table. They're like, oh, I'm seeing purple and
Oh,
green.
that's great.
And it's really neat too. Like I've had sessions, talking about like energy work and spiritual and all the fun stuff, right? I had a friend who had migraines that I worked on for a while. And there was a day where, I was holding her head, but it just felt like she needed space, right? And so literally from her head, I just took my hands off and started like this. And honestly, at one point, I was all the way back against my wall with my hands like this, not touching her at all.
With her energy.
And she thought my hands were still on
Right.
her head.
Yeah, that's the chi. That's the amazing aspect of our bodies and the energy that we facilitate, but that grows within us. I did a lot of that work when I was taking Tai Chi classes. We learned how to understand and to feel and to recognize our energy. And I was able to get my energy clear out here. You can't see me now, but way out here, and was able to actually stand up and dance with it. It's the most amazing thing. Um, you were talking about the conditioning and the stress that our society is dealing with now, and how this conditioning starts so young.
Mhm.
My daughter took a gap year in college. She finished got her degree and wants to go to law school. She took a gap year. Well, she has now applied to several universities, and they all told her it would take excuse me, 6 to 8 weeks to hear back. I am watching her progressively get more and more stressed. Every time she leaves and goes to work in the morning and comes back in the evening, I see her more stressed than she was the evening before. We had a dinner party, for example, last night. A couple of people that came over, and she knows them well. She kept getting up from the table and going away and coming back and sitting down and going away. I'm just watching her. We just put ourselves in these positions where we become so enveloped with fear and the I'm not good enough. And what if this doesn't go right? What if this doesn't go well? What if this doesn't happen for me? And so again, somebody like you, Cathy, it would be great. Obviously, my daughter would have to be in the place where she recognizes this. She's a little young yet, and she doesn't want to hear it from mom. But if I could get her to you in some way, and other young people in today's world that are putting so much pressure on themselves to be what they think they're supposed to be in society. So, moms, get your kids.
Yeah.
Call up Cathy.
I honestly would love to do more workshops and classes like with young girls too, just about like, self-empowerment. And there's this big piece about like, having agency and stuff like that when people come in, and timing. And so like in biodynamic craniosacral, typically people don't just walk right in your door and get right on your table. There could be a 10, 15, 20 minute,
Sure.
you know, where they come in, they unpack what's going on, you get to
Mhm.
kind of know each other, and then they get on the table. But just there's this whole piece where I'll tell them, we're so conditioned to be like, I'm ready. Okay, I'm ready. And then I'll be like, really? What's telling you in your body that you're ready? Oh, well. And it's like they feel this, and I'm like, does that feel good that, And I mean, even this thing about so I'll tell them, I'm going to let you really drop into your body, take a couple minutes, do a body scan, see what you're noticing. And then when you really feel ready, then let me know. And you know what? Give yourself the space to have a sense of readiness, because where in life does anyone else give a shit if you're ready or not, right? And so it's all this stuff about the body too, like, you know, coming back in and sensing in the body, how does it feel to be ready? How, what feels good, what doesn't, recognizing overwhelm, recognizing disorganization. And I just think for young girls to have that ability to go in the body and know that they can trust their intuition, and know too that the emotions that we get so much shit for as women are really the intelligence in your body saying, oh my fucking God, I need support.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
Jesus.
Yeah. And you're right. Again, going back to what you said early on about the conditioning that we go through. I mean, there's somebody new on YouTube right now. I don't know that he's new, but he's a chiropractor, and he uploads recordings of him manipulating infants.
Mhm.
who some of them are, I'm sure there's a guideline, and I'm sure he can't touch them too early on, but he'll deal with infants that are 2 and 3 months old that have been fussy since they came out of the womb, and they cannot get settled. And by the time he's finished with his manipulations, which he does not show on camera, but he shows the before and the after, and they are just lying in his arms, happy, cooing. They're looking at him, they're looking around the room. It's like, so I would imagine you see that in adults all the time, that look. We know that look. Jennifer and I know that look when we've spent 4 hours with somebody in a session, and they sit up and they look at us with this huge smile, and their energy, you were talking about colors, their energy has changed. The colors have changed.
Because they feel seen sometimes for the first time in their life, literally.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
speaking of babies, I mean, I have a background in pre and perinatal. I've done a lot of things. I've done TBI and concussions and the spectrum and all this stuff, but also I have a pre and perinatal background, the psychological effects of birth on babies. And so just how our birth sets up the tone for how we move through life.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's pretty phenomenal how our birth shapes us. And now this might be one where you need to edit. I'm trying to remember why I was.
Well, we're talking about babies and the trauma they go through
Oh,
coming out of the womb.
so babies respond so well to this work. And actually, there's like newborns are fine. Like the sooner you get with them, the better. But like you can help with colic. Oh my God, there's so many things. I actually have worked with lots of babies and kiddos and pregnant mamas. Like I've gotten babies to be able to nurse within like 1 or 2 sessions.
That's great.
And there is nothing like, a lot of times I'll have the mama lay down and she'll be nursing, and I like to hold the baby and the mama. I always say I'm kind of calibrating the energy between the two, right? And to to have a mama's eyes light up when she feels the baby suck get stronger. Oh, it's like winning the lotto. It's the coolest thing ever, but
Oh,
babies really respond. And if you think about all the compression and the torsion, and even just how birth is handled in this country, right? Nobody, and I'm sorry, I will cuss because it makes me mad, but it's like we don't freaking look at it from the baby's perspective at all. Most people don't understand that
Yeah.
babies initiate their own birth. So when we're doing scheduled births, right away, we're disempowering and telling this baby, you don't got what it takes. Let me do this for you,
Yep.
And there's so many interventions that happen. And I mean, so and not even that, but there's so much that happens in the body during birth. Like the pelvis is shaped like this, right? So initially the head is going to be here because it fits this way. But as things get more narrow down here and the baby's torsioning, right? Now they can fit, right? Do you see how it got more narrow so they can
mm-hmm.
get in there? And so like they're doing all this turning and coming up against hard bone, and the head's going one direction while the body's still straight, and there's compression. And especially if you've used Pitocin, there's
Yep.
going to be even more. And so that just sets up for compression in the spine, torsion in the spine, shearing in the spine. And so if you can work with a newborn, I feel so strongly that every newborn should have a series of craniosacral sessions right away, because it will help them get back online. It can help get rid of so much like stress and trauma in their body. And oh my God, babies are so sentient. We don't give them
I
credit. Like
know.
you
And
guys,
and for those individuals who are listening that are of the Western medicine medical persuasion, of course we know that infants, as they're being born, their skeletal system is not developed in the same way it will be by the time they're 12 months old for the reasons of birth. They have to be more malleable. That doesn't mean that birth is not traumatic to their body, not to mention their emotional
Well,
being.
emotion is a big component too, because if you think about babies don't know how to differentiate between themselves and their mom, right? And so whatever she's going emotionally, whatever's going on internally, externally, think about like the Great Depression, or think about a lot of the things that, COVID, right? Like if a mom has all these fears about safety and society and a baby is born in that, guess what they're going to have? You know what I mean? So
Yes. Oh,
babies
yeah.
on a lot of stuff, but they're brilliant too. Like I had a session one time where I worked on this. I swear he couldn't have been more than 3 months old. I don't, he was so new, he was so tiny. And sometimes babies just need to express, and that's hard for new mamas, right? Like, and we're taught in our culture, shh, don't let him cry. Can you imagine if you were talking to your best friend and you're like, and then he did this and blah, 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 and your friend said, shh, don't, shh, shh, shh. You would want to punch her, wouldn't you?
Right.
The idea is, how about if we help mamas learn to listen to their babies, and maybe we can differentiate, like, what are they saying? And maybe we can even give them the space to express in the only way that they know how, because they don't have words, right? And so I've had sessions where I'll just sit and I'll let them cry. But you don't want to overwork them, because that can be
Right.
re-traumatizing. So I had this baby one time, and I said, you know what? I'm here to listen to you. I just want to hear what you have to say. And he literally started crying, right? And after a little bit of time, I wanted to kind of bring him back into present moment, not to re-traumatize. It's good to get that out, but then it's good to let the body know, and it's not happening right now. Right. And that's like, whoop, nervous system into present time. We're safe. Right. But so I told this baby, I said, it's okay for you to cry, but I just want you to look around the room. And I can't even, it's nuts. But this little teeny tiny baby who was like, stopped, opened his eyes, and oriented to the room.
Yeah.
I think people have got to recognize how sentient, connected, and intelligent we all really are.
We
And we
all are.
slow down and feel into that.
Could you imagine if we all came into this world with Cathy standing there? We probably, Jennifer, you and I would be completely different people.
I thought about being a midwife, and I even got trained as a doula, but I was just like, we need more cranial therapists. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
so important.
Well,
It's so
Jennifer, you
important.
you studied that a little bit, didn't you? Midwife.
I do hypnobirthing,
Yeah.
which is also very good for the mother and the baby. It's so natural. And we encourage water birthing. So that's a whole nother.
I did that for my second child was a Pisces, and my midwife kept telling me, no, she's going to be an Aries. You're just in a hurry. And I said, no, she's a Pisces. I know it. And I had her in water. Sure enough, she was a Pisces.
Yeah.
I had both
She'd
of
come
them.
out swimming.
She did. It's so funny. But I had both girls at home,
Mhm.
and oh my gosh, it was the most beautiful, empowering, um, man, that was two of the most empowering, connected, primal experiences of my life. And I honestly don't think I could have handled a hospital birth. I think I would have wanted to punch someone, because for
It doesn't
me,
have to be that way at
I
all.
just went internal and did my thing,
Yeah.
and it was wonderful.
Yes, you have to
It hurt,
relax. Yeah.
but it was worth.
Um, you're reminding me when you keep saying baby, 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 because I call my dogs baby. I know that this work is wonderful on the fur babies, and they're not hurt either very by a lot of people. And they're also sentient beings. And I'd like to hear how you work with animals and how it's different from working with humans and how it's the same.
Yeah. Well, I don't necessarily work with animals in my practice, but I do have animals, and I have two different animal stories, but animals are different in that you don't really put them up on a table. My experience of working with dogs is with my own dog, he knows, he comes in and tells me, but usually they oftentimes will come and put their butt by me, and I'll put my hand somewhere on their spine, and usually they just kind of collapse down in front of me. And then I just sit there and this is another reason why I like biodynamic is there's no protocol that you have to follow. So I just let my hands go where my hands go. And actually, I have a big white golden. He's Chester. He came in one day literally limping from our backyard, and he's a big dog. He looks like a Great Pyrenees, but he was literally like dragging his back leg. And I was like, oh my God. And so he came up right to me. I did the thing. He laid down, and I just held and worked on him for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. The limp was gone. I don't know what he did. I don't know what happened, but when he got up, he was not limping. And then before I took, I think it was before I finished my cranial training, but I can't remember. I had a friend that was a chiropractor, and she did work on animals. And so she taught an equine craniosacral
Yeah.
class. And oh my God, honestly, I don't remember hardly anything from that class. But what I do remember was at one point they said, okay, everyone go find a horse. And the doors opened. I have no memory of where the other people went or seeing any other horses, but I looked across the paddock or whatever that thing is, and there was one horse at the fence, and he was kicking and whinnying, and all I could hear in my head was pick me, pick me. And so I walked over to him, and he walked up, like we walked up to each other. There was a fence between us. I put my hand up like this kind of to pet him, and he was tall, so then he kind of lowered down, so I had one hand here and another here. And then his eyes, like not dilated, the opposite of dilated, I guess. And he started shifting weight and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, I got this rush of, like, I felt sad. I felt alone. I felt confined. It felt dark to me and all this stuff. And then he just popped up and walked away.
Mm.
And I told the owner, I went back, and told everyone what happened. And she was like, oh my God. She goes, got this horse from a poor horse trainer, poor meaning bad. Um, he was in a small stall, no windows, all by himself. And I was like, I know, like I felt it. But
Wow.
that's what I like about this work too, and why it seems spiritual to me in nature is it's it's telepathic. I mean, I am literally sitting and holding a body, and sometimes I'll have a conversation, a verbal conversation, just to make sure we're tracking the same thing or whatever. But so much of my sessions, I'm literally in my head talking to that body, and that body is responding to me. And animals are the same way, they're so telepathic.
Yeah.
They're open to it, right? They don't have
Yeah.
any predestined or preconditioned beliefs
Right.
about, oh, that's weak,
Yeah.
So I will tell you, babies and animals are probably the biggest testimonial for this work because they love it.
Yeah.
Excuse me, what a wonderful story. Kathy,
Yeah.
you are an amazing soul. You really are. And I have to tell you, we could go on for hours more. And unfortunately, we don't have much more time. But will you please come back? Because there's a lot of questions we didn't even
Oh my God,
touch.
I would love to. I would love to. My goal is to let everybody know how amazing and beautiful and wonderful they are, and just Your body isn't broken, it's brilliant, and there is space for you on this planet to be exactly who you came here to be. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think that you're amazing, wonderful, and beautiful.
oh, thank you.
You are. I feel you. You're good. You're a good one.
I will be sure to put your information down in the description box. Also, I try to put everybody's website or email or whatever in their little square so that people can get it from there as well. And for those of you guys out there that are watching, please remember to like and subscribe and put the comments down below as to what other type, first of all, what do you think of craniosacral healing? What do you have more questions about it? And also let us know if there are other types of healing modalities that really interest you that you'd like for us to showcase on Souls on Tap. So just remember that we are all here, including our guests, for you, our listeners. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon on Souls on Tap.